Great. Welcome everybody to the webinar 1 for our cyber literacy and Cyberbot follow-up. All of the resources are available on, if you go to the agenda for the training and then click on the webinar 1, you'll see them there. And I'll chat it out too in case people want to grab them that way. Lots of people have filled in the evaluation, and so that is so exciting. I am really glad that we're doing that because that makes it a lot better for all of us to kind of see what we're doing and where we're struggling and everything like that. So check-in has happened, and really that is our very first thing is we go through check-in. And if you're in the webinar, please, when we get to your name, and we'll kind of go alphabetically, share, because that way we can hear what you're doing. And we'll definitely try to answer your questions. If you have an answer to somebody's questions or have experienced that, feel free to chime in too. All right, so Dan, I do not think Dan is with us. No. All right, so he's done some stuff with wiring, breadboard, and circuit lessons. And Dwayne is not here either, but he said he's just getting his students started on Python coding, so that's exciting. Kayla, are you here? All right. She's done quite a bit of coding with the microbits, but she had a question about a resource for online to find Cyberbot lessons or tutorials to use with kids besides the Parallax sites. And so Chuck, do you have any ideas on that one or any comments on that one?
Yeah, so I'm just putting my dogs up, sorry. The Cyberbot is fairly new, only released a year ago this coming March, and we are still developing new content. Parallax is still developing new content. Right now, Cyberlit 1, Cyberlit 2 are probably the best resources for Cyberbot content, but I'd also want to say to keep an eye on the Parallax page, because my team was just at Parallax for a week to help develop new cybersecurity themed content. So we're going to be working with the radio feature of the bots and having microbits talk to cyberbots and intercepting messages and stuff. And this, we're hopeful that this stuff's going to be online for March, April timeframe. But again, just the newness of the Cyberbot. Like you said, there's a lot of microbit stuff out there, but right now the Cyberbot stuff is only coming from NYSERC or Parallax. So keep an eye on the Parallax site because that's going to be updated before ours is.
Awesome. That is so exciting.
Oh, it was a really cool week.
It sounds like a really cool week. All right, Leanne,
Hi.
I was so excited to hear what you did with the music. Tell us more.
So basically, after our sessions here in town, I took it to my math club like that Friday, and I had a student who I have a lot of musically inclined students, so we ended up playing with it and recreating the Mario theme song entirely instead of just the single line of notes that I had. And then I had a student who took the extra initiative to pick one of her favorite Christmas songs, because it was around Christmas time when we first started doing things, and did the entire set of notes for a song. She found the appropriate code, the appropriate length of time to go with it based on the note itself. So it was pretty cool to see that.
That is so cool. I love that. I mean, just because they were really, it sounds like they were really engaged.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a good question. Do you want to ask your question?
Well, I was just wondering, because I'm not a coding teacher, and I haven't done a whole lot of coding because I'm a math teacher and don't have time to really do that on top of all of the other lessons that I do by standard. So I was kind of just wondering about doing multiple things at a time, but before the session started, when he answered that question, it makes sense.
But everybody needs to hear the answer.
Yeah.
That was just Dan and I brainstorming in case
No.
Chuck didn't show up.
And I might not have had the whole answer there, Leanne. I'm sorry. Let's refer to Chuck and see what has to say about it.
You're muted, Chuck.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, here we go. Sorry, my screen's going back and forth between Julie's. Anyway, so yeah, the microbit can't really multitask. So here's the thing about microbit. If you take a peek under the hood of the Cyberbot, underneath that main board, there's a propeller chip, and I think it was in our workshop presentation. Now, the propeller chip is very adept at multitasking. Unfortunately, that's not, obviously, right, the brains of the show. The brains of the operation is the microbit. That's our weakest link, and the microbit can't really multitask. What we can do is we can set the servos in motion and then do something else while the servos are moving. And I know I explained this at a workshop I was hosting, and I don't know if it ever came up at the one in Sioux Falls side of the state, but for example, if I want to, make music while I'm rolling forwards, I can engage the servos and then engage the piezo speaker. As long as the servos are rolling in the same direction without anything else happening to them, the speaker can be making noise. But as soon as I've got to go back and maybe change direction or rotate backwards or stop, the speaker stops, and then as long as I'm doing this now other operation with my wheels, I can go back to playing something with my speaker. How my kids figured out a workaround to that multitasking operation was drive in quarter notes, right? So make my bot 18.servo sleep for 250. That's a quarter of a second. And then instead of sleep 250, I can do the bot tone function for 250. So I don't have to sleep during servos. I can tone during servos. And if I keep a pace of, for your musically inclined students, as a musician myself, if every bot function runs 250, then I can be using that sleep time to be playing different notes. I can do the same with LEDs. I can have LEDs blinking at the rate for the amount of time that I need my servos to be moving. I can't do two things at the same time, but I can do one thing, let it roll, and then do something else. And that's how we kind of get around the multitasking. And it's a great challenge for kids because it's not an obvious solution. And it's something for those who get it. It's a great differentiation tool for the classroom because, hey, I can't multitask, but here's how it might look, and see what they can do with it.
Thank you. That sounds, I'm excited. Lori, we'll have something to do tomorrow in case the training goes. In case we get bored in training. We don't get bored in training, and we always stay engaged. All right.
We might sneak away and play with bots, though.
No, we might. I know. All right. So, Cheryl.
Hi, can you hear me at all?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just got in. I got a basketball game here soon, so it's at 5. So sorry, I kind of jumped in a little bit late.
You're fine. We know you'll watch the archive if you need to, and we're all good. So welcome.
Okay, thank you.
So what did you do? You've shown the students the robot.
Yep, I demonstrated, and then I've been trying to come up with some ideas to purchase some more. And now I see that you put that in there from Donors Choose. I know I can requisition for next year, but I would really like to get something going this year, but maybe I'll seek that out.
And Chuck, you may have other ideas, or Lori or Dan. This was just Valerie had sent in. Valerie could not be at the session today, but she'd sent an email and she actually shared her. She's like, tell everybody to do Donors Choose. And she sent her funded project. And so I thought that would be, it's just always nice to have something that's funded.
I don't have a solution, unfortunately. The prices that we started at aren't available anymore, and it's Parallax blames tariffs, and it's always something political that gets in the way of education. So as a result, the $200 bot's now $220, and I wish I could do more to support these bots getting into classrooms. If you have the opportunity to attend our Education Discovery Forum this summer up in Minnesota, you might walk away with a couple bots. That might be a good opportunity.
Thank you.
Something else to keep in mind with Donors Choose is anytime you do a STEM project, contact businesses in your area, an industry in your area. 3M is phenomenal for completely funding some projects, and I mean, they're really, I know I had good luck in the Aberdeen area, but I've also had the Brookings 3M fund entire Donors Choose projects when I was in the classroom. 3M is a good one. There's also just other area industries that will fund your project. And so put your project out there, and then do not be shy about telling people that it's out there. Reach out to people, in that industry, and tell them it's there. If you want some help, if you're feeling a little shy with that, let me know. I'm not very shy with that. So.
Thanks, Lori.
Thanks, Lori.
Also, Julie, I think maybe capture what Chuck said about attending that conference in, was it Minneapolis?
That's on my paper notes, and actually I'll send that out. I'll put that on the agenda because I think it'd be better to have the actual details rather than some vague thing here.
Gotcha.
So, thanks, Dan. All right. Tommy. Do we still have you?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
I'm here. I have to apologize. I have a 3-year-old that doesn't want to leave my side, but she doesn't want to be quiet either. So if you hear her, that's what it is. I have actually shown my kids, I actually have 2 groups that would be working with them. I've shown both groups of my kids. I had one group, yeah, it's cool. And then the other group was so excited. They actually, I let them take it apart and look at it, which kind of scared me a little bit, but they're excited. So we just got in a programming unit. So we will actually be starting, I'm going to put that in there somehow. And then my question was just like Kayla's too, just as far as the best lessons and stuff like that. But I think Chuck answered that question for me as well.
Yeah, take a look at that. Am I on the? No, take a look at Cyberlit. It starts out basic. Towards the end, you're going to work with whiskers. You're going to work with infrareds. All of that's contained within the box.
Okay.
Everything in Cyberlit is contained within the box. Cyberlit 2, you need some additional sensors and some additional components for like the bank vault and the minesweeper and the moon rover, but everything in Cyberlit 1's right out of the box, so that'd be some good stuff in there to start with.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Nice. All right. Rolling on down. Kyle, you're with us.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I
Yep.
think so.
Okay, so I am in a middle school exploratory CGE classroom, and so we do rotation through modules in small groups, 2 or 3. So it actually has worked perfect to have only one, because a small group can work with it, and then it can rotate to a different group. And so the kids pick it based on their interest. So the kids that do it are very interested in robotics. We do have Lego EV3s also for robotics that I have full classroom set. So the kids that see this, it looks very different than the EV3s. And so they're super interested in the circuits and the actual written code. So that's been really engaging for those kids. And then we also have an after-school makerspace, and the kids can kind of rebuild and play around with stuff too. So that's how we've been implementing it in my building.
And you have a great question for Chuck.
Yeah, so obviously I can do lots of informal assessment, like seeing how they've completed the lessons that are on that Cyberlit, and just kind of visually seeing their completion. But a lot of our grading comes from formal assessments where I say, okay, what is this part? What do these parts do? What would be the result of this code? You know, kind of a written format for them. So is there something written out, like a test or a quiz or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there is a section on resources, and even in our Canvas site, as you work through the lessons, you'll see tests and quizzes thrown in there. So you know, when I wrote that as I was teaching in the classroom, and I needed a lot of those, like you said, you know, what does this thing do? What does this code do? Find the error in the code. So you see a lot of that in some of the assessments that are within Cyberlit. And just, you know, take a look in the robotics lessons. Take a look, and there's going to be, you know, exams and semester exams and stuff that also exist there. So hopefully everything you need's going to be there. I'm intrigued by your rotation opportunity, because I used to teach in high school that had rotation, and you know, I did a chess rotation. We talked about strategy, and then we applied programming to it. So I think you've got a great opportunity here with a Cyberbot to work with these kids. You also mentioned you had Lego EV3s. If you don't have access to it, if you take a look at your Canvas account, there's a course we have called Cyber Fundamentals. And in there, we've even got some additional Lego EV3 content, as well as some other microbit and Cyberbot stuff. So take a look at your Canvas account. If you don't have Cyber Fundamentals, you should have an email from Jessica Stern at my organization, or anyone else at NYSERC, or even at TIE, and they can forward it on to us, and we can get you hooked up with Cyber Fundamentals. And that's for everyone, not just those Legos.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome, thank you. That's cool. I didn't realize that the Cyber Fundamentals had all that stuff either. All right, let's see, rolling on down. So Valerie can't be here, but she is doing a ton of things. She's so excited, and you'll notice that she raised enough funds to order 4 more robots, and shared that donors choose in a private email, and so that's why it's linked on everybody who's asked about it. I can answer this question, but we'll let Chuck answer it. I think all of us could answer that question, can't we, Dan and Lori?
It is available all year long, and everyone can have access to it. Don't share your login with your peers. Have them register for their own accounts. We would love to see everyone in your schools get access to this stuff. It's free for everyone. And it's, you know, like I said, you can all have access to Cyber Fundamentals, Cyber Literacy, Cyber Society. There's some really, really great stuff in there. And if you ever have any questions about how to use any of the other components besides Cyberlit, we're happy to answer those questions too. So yes, it's there. Make use of it.
Thank you. All right, Adam.
Yeah. So I've taken the robot around. I don't have a classroom myself, but I work with a lot of teachers. And I've taken the robot into about 3 classrooms so far, talking about how we can use this specifically with their STEAM courses and things like that. And one of the classrooms got really interested, but I found out he was actually more interested in the breadboard. So we got into a discussion about the different things we could build with the breadboard. So I kind of struck out with the robot, but the breadboard is awesome. And then we were talking about learning a little bit more about the Python editor online to give the kids another way to code, because they've been using Makey and Scratch, and I really want them to look at that Python editor because it just makes Python so easy. I think it's very accessible to kids. So I've been using some of the ideas that we learned, probably more from the cyber literacy courses than the actual coding of the robot and stuff like that. So my question was, there was a physical coding lesson where you talked about the kids that need to orient themselves with their own environment to help them create the different commands for the robots. And I can't find that. I've kind of been frantically jumping through the cyber literacy course to find that. Do you offhand know where that is?
So I'm going to ask you to say another way because I'm not sure. Are we talking about? I know when I presented it, I talk about perspective, right? If I want the wheel to go
Yes.
forward, clock doesn't know what forward is. So we put ourselves in a wheelchair and we relate to clockwise and counterclockwise. Is that what we're talking about?
That is exactly it. That is the exact conversation we had.
That is such a good conversation, and unfortunately, that's how it exists. I don't know that it's ever been written into a lesson, and you know, now hearing how much interest there is in seeing that, I'm definitely going to write that. But I don't know that it exists, guys.
Chuck, excuse me, Dan just dropped something in the notes on Trinket.io. Do you want to elaborate, Dan?
That was just for Adam. It's just an online editor. There's a couple I think available, and I think that one it works fine just for people to play with the code without having microbit or any other thing. I think some of them you can actually simulate having them without actually having any of the devices. You can just do it with the online simulation software. But I wanted to just put that down there. I don't know if Adam had played with Trinket.io. I don't remember the other one that we were using, but I know there's a few. That's
Yeah,
not,
I'll definitely
yeah.
check that out. Yep.
It's not an answer to that question, but
Lori, do you know of any physical, do you guys remember what if we did it in class, what we would have done? What class was it, Adam?
Oh, it was just a conversation, and I thought Chuck was referencing a lesson that he did, and
Okay.
I think it was just a conversation that he has to help kids orient themselves spatially.
I would say that if you're looking for physical computing, physical coding examples, Adam, that the Raspberry Pi website probably has a lot of pretty good integrations with the breadboard and different sort of different activities that you can run with them. But that still doesn't answer your questions about the specific lesson that we did here in Rapid City.
Yeah, I remember the discussion, but
That's my fault. We'll get something written up, and I'll be sure to share it with the group, and we'll get something out. It shouldn't take that long. I got a lot of horsepower backing me up, so I can get someone working on this.
Awesome. Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I don't think we have Charnel could not join us because she has 2 meetings, I think it is, simultaneously. She was she asked for grant information, and so that was one of the things that I dropped in for her was Valerie's ideas, and she'll also hear those ideas from you too, Lori, and so that should be helpful for her. So this is awesome, you guys. So a couple things. You will want to leave your window up for the Cyberbot follow-up webinars because there's another tab that's called Brainstorm. And we are going to pop in there next. So feel free to make sure you're there. I'm going to go back over to the agenda. On the agenda, we did relink the resources from training just to make sure that they're right where everybody needs them. The NYSERC Canvas curriculum, which is here, we did, when we were in the training, we did the cyber literacy with Cyberbot, and we did the robotics section. And so if we pop over here and go back to the dashboard, we did cyber literacy, and then the Cyberbot, and then we really only looked at the robotics section. Today we're going to take a quick look at the liberal arts section, but you'll notice there are a number of other resources here. And when you do click on resources, there is the pathway, there's a suggested order of lessons for the cyber literacy. And so that might be something that's interesting for, you know, those of you that are looking at doing a semester long, or trying to determine the pathway of where to start. And Chuck, do you have anything to say about that?
There I am. No, so again, I was on a block schedule when I wrote this for the classroom, and there's, if you count them up, right, there's not enough for a lesson per day. So a lot of these took multiple days, and that includes the liberal arts stuff, which we're going to talk about. So don't try and say there's not enough stuff here, because there's clearly more days than content. Some of these are designed to run multiple days, and it's you when you as you go through the intro stuff, you'll see there's going to be like the first time you run navigation, kids aren't going to finish it in a day, because there's so many fine-tuning pieces you can do, and it's really a good opportunity to differentiate in the classroom. Those who get it, give them more challenges, let them continue to experiment, and that way that gives you the opportunity to work with those who might be struggling with it. So it's a good spreadsheet, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss.
Thanks. So we are going to now, and then we also linked over the Cyberbot tutorials from Parallax, and this will be where the new stuff shows up if we watch that there, right, Chuck?
Yep.
Okay.
So we've already got 4 lessons written: radio basics, radio navigation. So we're going to be controlling bots through keyboards, controlling bots with other bots, and then we're going to get into some cryptography using things like Caesar ciphers and other things.
Sure.
There's going to be probably a dozen or so lessons we're going to add to that over the next couple months.
Chuck, do you ever consider like crowdsourcing, different groups of teachers you've worked with in the past, teachers who have attended your training, crowdsourcing sort of their creative process towards lesson development and implementation?
Yeah, so I try to make this offer at the workshops I attend, that the teachers use this in the classroom. They're going to customize, they're going to come up with new ideas. We love to have that stuff contributed back. We can share it on the Canvas site. We can share it through the Parallax site. Definitely want to encourage folks to share back and let other teachers benefit from their work.
Nice, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so moving on to new content. So this is stuff that we did not talk about at all while we were in the training, in the 2-day training. Well, I take that back. The Rapid City folks did go through this really quickly, but the Sioux Falls folks did not go through this at all. But we still had a good day. We're going to jump into the Cyberbot liberal arts course. And so if you are on your dashboard, it is Cyberliteracy. And then we are doing the liberal arts. And as you notice, there are a number of different lessons there, and they're structured just the same as what we looked at before. So you have master notes, you have PowerPoints, and there's quizzes here. There's also, if there are worksheets, they're attached. We pulled out 2 of these activities today. And so Laura, do you want to touch on them, or do you want me to?
You're muted.
Muted. I'm just talking away. Why don't you go
We
ahead
can
and
tell you
start,
were
Julie?
talking because you were using your hands. What, Lori?
Why don't you go ahead and start? I'm clearly not ready.
Okay, so we pulled out 2 a current events project and a debates project because as we went through these, we felt like it would give us the opportunity to look for resources to support you if you wanted to do this. And so NYSERC does give the presentation, and one of the things with the presentation is it may be something that you would want to just use as your teacher notes and not necessarily share out, or if you share it out, use it as something that the students just have as a something to reference to. But the whole goal here is to be responsible cyber citizens and being able to discuss current events in cyberspace. And so they need to be able to read and analyze an article about current events and write a short paper. So this project is designed where the teacher actually provides the articles, and as we go on through, it talks about the content guidelines and things like that that they're expecting. They also have an agreement here that talks about, that the student has reviewed the chosen article. One of the things they also provide is a rubric and a worksheet. The rubric does go through and give you those the points for each one of the sections, so to kind of help guide the learner. And these are things that, Lori and I, when we went through and planned this, really discussed that this is a really great starting point, and you could definitely take this assignment and go so many different ways with it, because fitting it into your content with that cyber literacy. Did you have anything more on that one, Lori?
Yeah, I think you covered pretty much everything. I think this is just such a good place to really get kids thinking about the resources that they're looking at. You could think about too, if it's something you'd have time for, having kids look for their own resources and helping them to become discerning about what resources they're using, how they can tell if they're reliable, looking for that fake news. And so I think there's so many ways you could go with this. So it's a really great project.
And so that was the current events project, and then they also have a debates project. And this one, so that's 9. And this one, if we pop into the worksheet, it gives the PowerPoint and the worksheet are essentially the same. Your learners are assigned a random project, and then they have 2 weeks to prepare. And as we scroll on down, they actually do a debate. We do get topics here for a list of potential topics, and so that's kind of nice if you wanted to go that route. And then there's also an evaluation sheet to kind of go through and listen to the debates with. They also would like a bibliography. And so when we looked at the 2 activities, they really scaffold well on each other. The first one, gets us started reading that, current events content. And then the second one, we're actually doing our own research, and we're having to debate the topic. So what we really wanted to do was spend a few more minutes giving you guys an opportunity to talk about where are your go-to sources for information about current events related to cyberspace. And so if you go back to the spreadsheet where we shared our projects, there is another tab there, and your names are all there. So if you take just a couple minutes and jot down your go-to sources for current events information related to cyberspace, that would be great.
Can I put my name on it?
Of course. Sorry, I did not mean to leave you out. Dan and Lori, you can put your name on there too. Chuck, we do have yours on the agenda, unless you have more than that one.
Yeah, no, this is the one I want to
Okay,
make
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, we're talking about that one special.
I'm like, no way.
Well, you don't have to make it go away. We did put it on the agenda though. Okay, so it doesn't look like quite everybody is typing. And so if you aren't able to find the spreadsheet, go back to the agenda for today. Down under apply what you've learned, we have the share. And if you click on that, it brings up the spreadsheet that we did our sharing on. And then there is a tab, there's reflection, and there's also brainstorm. And so go ahead and find your name under brainstorm and fill that in. Oops. Awesome. I'm seeing some really cool things. And so as you guys are filling them in, we're going to have you guys talk about them. So Kyle, do you want to talk about your YouTube channel real quick?
Yeah, there's a YouTube channel called TechLink. It's a small like sub channel of this this big YouTube channel called Linus Media, and they have an author that 3 times a week creates this 6-minute long video. It's really short, that has relevant news topics. They are kind of more focused on consumer electronics, but they do interesting news about technology in general and innovation in technology. So some topics include like the Cybertruck from Tesla, or like important rocket launches, or but a lot of the focus is on like consumer electronics, like how iPads are progressing, or video game consoles, which I think kids are super interested in anyway. So, and they have links to all the actual like news articles. So he gathers all the links and puts them in the description of this video, so you can actually go and see the articles, actual authors as well.
Okay. Well, that's really cool. And I love that it's tied with the video, you know, and the articles, and so you can really differentiate there. So that's awesome. All right. So let's see, Leanne.
Yes. I don't really search for things specifically, but when I do search for things, I just look at Google News and it scrolls like 20 different articles and refreshes the page, and whatever catches my eye, I kind of click on and read.
Okay. Adam. You might need to unmute, Adam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your sites?
Sorry, yeah, I was watching.
That's okay.
I was watching tech-linked videos, so.
We totally lost you. I can see that. Thanks, Kyle.
They're very entertaining too.
They are. I'm getting started, so I've got some binge watchings to do. So a lot of my stuff comes from Apple News. So I've got Macworld linked in there, The Wired, and The Verge, and those guys keep pretty good tabs on what's going on in the world of just technology in general. So some of it bleeds over into cybersecurity and things like that, just what the big companies are doing to try and do more data mining on you and how to thwart their processes. But then I love NetSmart's Kids. I've been using it ever since I was a computer teacher myself, and they do not so much current events, but just issues that come up that relate to kids and teens about how to protect yourself online, all the different scenarios that the kids can be involved in, and giving them some language to talk with other people, even adults, in order to protect themselves and get their point across. So those are my favorites right there.
Thank you. Well, this is not, this is good. It'll probably lose everybody. We've got all these really great ideas. Let's see. Did I miss anybody up here? Tommy.
Yes, I once or twice a week kind of just do a broad search. I don't have a specific site. I did put one in there that I've referenced quite a bit as far as the cyber-based like terminology, and there is a few projects on that site as well. I haven't used those. I've just actually used the glossary part, just so I know what they're talking about or I should be talking about.
Gotcha. Well, and that's, it's always good to have those resources in our back pocket, so that we, and we can share them with the kids. So that's good too. All right, let's see. Dan, you've got some awesome looking ones here. You're muted.
I guess maybe these resources would be secondary, but there's some pretty good podcasts out there, and this podcast system is evolving fairly regularly. So Hackable was one, and they kind of took a look at like any kind of movie premise that said like this is how these guys hack. They sort of tackle it and they take it apart to see if that is actually something that could really happen. Any kind of major issues I think on the world scene about technology and that sort of stuff could be covered on, is it PBS? On Science Hour, Science Friday, I forget it which radio, NPR. There's another one I just found, Cybersecurity and Technology. It's an audio. It's from I think a government agency that puts it out. Just for kind of fun technology stuff. I follow this kid. He's got 10 million YouTube followers. He just reviews technology, but in the course of his technology reviews, like he'll oftentimes bring up issues that arise, like the issue that the government took with Huawei, the Chinese tech firm. And I also like this guy. He's kind of like my new Malcolm Gladwell, Yuval Noah Harari. And he did a book called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And I thought that was really fascinating and really kind of brought a spotlight on where issues will be going in the future of technology. None of these things, well, maybe high school kids could digest some of them, but I think just giving you ideas about how different things to different content areas to share with your students, I guess that would be my main thing from all of those.
Well, thanks, Dan. That's a nice list.
Yeah.
All right. Chuck, what do you have for us?
All right. So you want to talk about the one that's on the agenda, the next Gov?
Well, we can, or we can. I was going to take us there. So if you want to, we can talk about.
So CyberWire, I get a daily journal from that group there, and it's just something delivered to my mailbox. So it's one of those things. If I have time, I'll dig into it. But it comes with links to the original articles, and it's just, I mean, every day there's dozens of things that they're talking about in there, and it's some students, it might be more harm than good, but it just makes you aware of just what actually is going on out there. I do have my go-to podcast is called Darknet Diaries. It's about once a week. The best one I've heard was just a couple weeks ago, day of Christmas actually. They released an episode called Not Petya, and they went through and they talked about that whole virus over the summer, that whole incident over the summer, and how it originated in Ukraine and ended up, just a worldwide event. As a guy with a shipping background, what I loved about it was they took a look at that event and how it impacted Maersk Shipping Company, which is a global shipper, and it was I just thought it was fabulous how the kind of attention to detail they had. There was another one where they were talking about who is now this fellow who is now an adult, a professional, but back in the day, FBI came knocking on his door, and he actually was working for the FBI while in high school with some of his cyber skills. And I think it's a good opportunity for maybe kids who don't have their mind made up yet, or who are still making the wrong choices, that there's time for them to learn and make better choices. If you want to give them a hold of that podcast, I think it's a really neat tool. So those are my go-tos, as well as the other one, which we'll talk about in just a second.
And here is your real go-to one. This is the one that you told us they they needed to know about. So here you go.
So this is a group called nextgov.com, and this is their cybersecurity tab. And this is updated daily. And this is something, when I was in the classroom, I had enough confidence in this site to make it a bookmark for my students. So I would turn them loose on this site. Find an article per day or find one article per week and dive in. So while current events, was scheduled for second quarter in my classroom, it was a task that they had to, keep up with throughout the school year. And they knew when they came into the room and current events was on the board, they're going to either NextGov or to the magazine rack on the wall where I would keep some publications at my school. So I was at a Marine Corps JROTC school, and they had some interesting subscriptions that I would put on the wall there, some military news. It was an assignment that turned into a regular event, and this was the go-to. So it's you worry about current events where students are going to find a cartoon with a caption and try and write a 3-paragraph summary of a caption of a cartoon. And that's not a current events project. So this site has enough meaty material for them to dig in, and they could do a bibliography on it. So one of my things was, cross-curricular opportunities, and I would make them submit bibliographies for anything that they researched online. And my school chose MLA, so I work with MLA. If I had my choice, I would do APA, but that's apparently not really high school friendly. So make them do a bibliography on every article. They're going to get good at it if you have them do this once every couple weeks or so. And then the debate project, have them do a bibliography on all their resources. They're gonna get good at it eventually, and your English teachers will thank you. But NextGov, cybersecurity, fabulous resource.
Well, thank you. I mean, and one of the things when Laura and I were planning to is really this project. When you look at the current events and the debate project, they're really great for collaborating with your English teacher on this, just because they can handle the English logistics, and you can do the other fun stuff. Not that English stuff isn't fun, but I think I want to be an English teacher sometimes. So
if you can talk to teachers and have them give credit for things that students are doing in your classroom, I think it's a great opportunity to collaborate and really show that math doesn't just happen in the math classroom, and English just doesn't happen in the English classroom, that it happens in all the classrooms. And students see that enough, they'll understand that math, they're going to use it the rest of their life. English, they're going to use it the rest of their life. They need to be good writers in order to be good citizens. So I think it's a good opportunity.
All right. And so one of the other resources that I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about were the State Library's subscription resources. They did change everything to direct access as long as you're in South Dakota. Sorry, Chuck. Unless you're in South Dakota and I don't know it. You have to... but as long as you're in South Dakota, they use geo-authentication. And so you have direct click and go access to all of their resources. And we did list a couple of them out on the agenda that can be really useful for what you're doing with cybersecurity. Source Issues Researcher is one of my favorites because they have all the leading issues, and a lot of the leading issues do come up with, for example, here's social media, for example. We can go down and we can click on communication and technology, and it's going to bring up all the leading issues on communications and technology. And so we can go in and pull up, and so say cybercrime, for example. All the articles are for full text. You have an overview of the topic. As we scroll on down, you're going to have articles that are linked out to support both sides of the issue. And if we click on Find More, we can actually go in and get more articles. They have guides for the critical thinker, and so these actually guide you through the research process. They have critical questions. Here's your cartoon, Chuck. So we can actually use that. And they also have a timeline, which really can be so useful to help put a visual on when this topic became an issue and help you visualize that. So in addition, all of the articles have article read aloud, so we can play the article aloud. They also have citations, and so building bibliographies and everything are super easy. Easy to save to your Google Drive, OneDrive, email, and so you have lots of options there. And with the direct access from home now, it really makes them so much more accessible to anybody. And you don't have to have the barcode and password as long as you're in South Dakota. So Search Issues Researcher we dropped on there. There's also the full text journal resources like ProQuest, EBSCO Megafile. And then Search Issues Researcher has some really useful educator tools at their educator resources to help with, they have note organizers, and so like there's the writing to persuade, there is curriculum guides where you can actually go through for argument writing. So you have some tools there that can be beneficial as you're working with kids. So we were going to have you go out and find an article, but in the spirit of time and ending in about an hour, we are going to talk about what's next. And so Chuck is super cool, and he threw out a challenge for you guys to do before our next webinar, which is in February. And so do you want to talk about the assignment, Chuck?
Yep. So, the microbit has all those LEDs, 25 LEDs on the front. You can control them through block programming, through Python programming. You can, in addition to turning them on and off, you can also control their intensity. So what I would love to see is some kind of animation. So some kind of, multiple screen display that also varies the intensity of the microbit LEDs. So I think we talked about it in the content where you have your arguments are X, Y, I in the as you're plotting on your microbit screen. So X, Y obviously is my X, Y coordinates over and down, starting at 0 going through 4. So 4 would be the bottom right, and 0 would be the top left. But the I is the intensity, and that ranges from 0 through 9. So maybe it's a ship that sinks, and the outline of the ship is all intensity 9. The inside is shaded at some lighter intensity. Some kind of animation that also varies intensity as well as the LEDs that are on. That's your assignment.
Is there any questions, concerns?
I did this with students at a 2-day summer camp last year, and they got it. So I'm confident that we'll be able to make some animations with varied intensity.
Lori, did you want to say your reassuring reassurance? Who can they make do this assignment?
Make the kids do it. Sorry, that came out poorly. Have your students tackle this challenge with you. But what a great way to bring this back to your classes. Say, hey, I have to figure this out too. Let's work on it together. And you can actually make a project for you and your class. So.
All right. So create the program, and then you can report on it on our shared spreadsheet. And so when we go back to the reflection, there is the microbit coding challenge. Are you already done, Adam? That's good. Good job, Adam. So anyways, post your on the microbit coding challenge for the February webinar. So that'll be coming up before we know it, as the rate speed time is going. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what you've done, and we'll also talk about some more new content for you guys. And we'll be closer to even more Cyberbot lessons being on the Parallax site. So very exciting. So unless you have any more questions, we'll wrap it up for today, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.